Detective Walker, you can turn your video on and unmute yourself.
Okay, I've placed this on YouTube. We can begin. For the record, this is position number 127 and 128 on today's calendar, State of Georgia versus Raymond DeCarlos Stovall. Mr. Stovall is charged in warrant number 2022 CW 51217 with committing the offense of murder. He's also charged in warrant number 2022 CW 51219 with committing aggravated assault. Is there a 51218? There's not.
Let me see, I'm double checking, Judge. No, there are just two warrants, the murder and the aggravated assault.
Okay, Mr. Stovall is present in court. He's being represented by Attorney Pleasant, who's also in court. The state is being represented by Attorney Freeman. Attorney Freeman, would you please swear your witness in and present your case?
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Walker, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony about to provide in the matter of State of Georgia versus Raymond Stovall will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Please tell us your name and how you're employed.
Detective A. Walker with Clayton County Police Department.
How long have you been with the Clayton County Police Department?
8 years.
And sir, were you working with the Clayton County Police Department on December 26th of 2021?
I was.
And I'm sorry, can the jail mute themselves? I hear a lot of background noise.
I muted it.
Thank you. Or is that you, Detective Walker? Are you?
Cool. Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry, were you working with the Clayton County Police Department on December 26th of 2021?
I was.
On that particular day, did you respond to 1108 Brookstone Road in reference to a shooting?
I did.
Is this location a residence or a business?
It's a residential area.
When you arrived at this location, please tell us the steps you took starting your investigation.
Well, initially, the deceased had already left to the hospital. I mostly got got the initial investigation from Officer Allen, and he explained to me what he got from the first victim, Mr. Okoye. I'm sorry, the victim that was on scene, name is Mr. Zanu, Ayu Zanu. The deceased victim name is Mr. Okoye, Olatunji Okoye. He is the deceased victim that was transported already from the scene. So I was able to talk to the officer and Mr. Zanu, and basically what I got was this was pretty much a phone sale that went bad. Mr. Anu, the victim on the scene, stated that he was doing a business deal with another offender, CJ. They call him CJ, later identified as Therese Williams. He said that the phone deal was also included the deceased victim, Mr. Okoye. So they were supposed to meet up at this 1108 Brookstone Road, which is where Mr. Zanu resides. Mr. Zanu stated that a white Charger pulled up with CJ in the car. While they were discussing business, CJ asked, where was Mr. Okoye, which is the deceased victim. Mr. Okoye hadn't gotten there yet. So finally, Mr. Okoye did arrive. There was some exchange of conversation. And the next thing you know, Mr. Zanu stated that someone out of the passenger of the white Charger got out of the car, went into the trunk, and started shooting at him and his friend, Mr. Okoye. Unfortunately, Mr. Okoye was shot, and Mr. Zanu said that he ran to the back from the gunfire because he was running for his life.
When you say to the back, do you mean the back of the house or
Yes,
the back of the car?
I apologize, Judge. The way it's set up, it's like an apartment, but it's a residential apartment, single level. You got 1106 right here, you got 1108 right here. The car was on the street right here. So the way he described it, he ran to the back of the apartments, running for his life.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
And was this let me stop you real quick. So the person that got out of the car and went to the trunk and started shooting, was that someone that got out of the white Charger?
That's according to Mrs. Zano. Yes.
Okay.
Keep in mind the white Charger was on scene. That's how all these guys got away, but I'll get there in a minute.
So after Mr. Zanu, he ran to the back.
Yes.
I believe that's where you left off. He ran to the back. And so was Mr. Zanu, was he struck by any of the bullets?
He was not struck. He was shot at, but he was not struck.
Okay. So after he ran to the back of this, I guess, residential area, what did he say happened after that?
Well, what he did was he tried to knock on the rear window of 1106, which is his neighbor, screaming for help, but he said no one came to the door. Eventually, officers did show up and found the deceased victim laid out on the street. So that's how the investigation started. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to ask you, were there any witnesses or video surveillance that showed any of this that happened from outside?
At that time, no. But yes, during my investigation, I have witnesses and I have video footage.
Okay. Tell us what the witnesses that you were able to identify, what they said and how you were able to identify them.
Okay. A couple of days later, Tyler Marquise Davis and Christopher Davis Tyler is actually the driver of the white Charger. So Tyler runs a business. It's almost like an Uber in which he gets cash rides from people via Instagram. This is where the offender, Ramon Stovall, comes in. They made an agreement with Ramon contacted Tyler. He needed a ride to 1108 Brookstone Road. We actually have text messages of this exchange. The cost of this ride was going to be $15. Okay. So
I'm sorry. Let me stop you one more time. So Tyler Davis is the person identified as CJ?
No, sir.
Okay. I'm sorry.
CJ is Therese Williams. Tyler Davis is the driver of the white Charger who has his own business doing cash rides.
Let me stop you. I thought your testimony was that CJ was the driver of the car.
No, sir.
Okay.
No. CJ was in the car, but he's not the driver of the car.
So there are 3 individuals in the car.
Actually, more than that, sir.
Okay.
And Detective, just so we make sure that everyone kind of stays clear about what happened. The car, you said, was still on the scene. This is the white Charger, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Were you all able to determine who the owner of that car was?
Yes, ma'am.
And who was the owner of that car?
The owner is the eyewitness, Tyler Davis, who
Okay.
does cash rides for his business.
And were you able to interview Mr. Davis?
Mr. Davis and his cousin, Christopher. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Was his cousin also on the scene when this happened?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is his name?
That's Christopher Davis.
Okay. who all did you learn from your investigation? Who all was in the white Charger?
There's about 6 people inside that car.
Okay, was Mr. Stovall one of those individuals in the car?
Yes, ma'am, he was.
Okay. Now, how did Mr. Stovall come into play?
Okay, Mr. Stovall put together the ride. He contacted Tyler to transport them from an address of 784 South Carter Drive to 1108 Brookstone Road. So just to make sure we're on the same page, Mr. Stovall put together the ride for all these individuals to go over to the murder scene.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, Attorney Freeman, and Detective Walker. I'm making notes and I'm listening. I swear I thought I heard Officer Freeman ask if there are any witnesses, and you said no.
No, the 2 witnesses, sir, is Tyler Davis and Christopher Davis. They're the witnesses because they was inside the car. They are not part of this crime.
Okay, and so the way that I hear the word witness, the way you described it, I know you described Mr. Zano as a victim, but he's also a witness.
Yeah, I didn't put him down as a witness. I just put him down as a victim. The 2 witnesses that I'm describing are Mr. Tyler and Christopher because they were on scene inside the car.
Okay. I'm sorry, because I got to keep it straight. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, where did I leave off at?
You're describing how you got to Mr. Stovall.
Okay, Mr. Stovall put together the ride. I'll start over a little bit. He contacted Tyler to come pick them up at 784 South Carter Drive. When they got to 784 South Carter Drive, according to Tyler and Christopher, Ramon got in the car with 2 other individuals. According to Christopher, which is Tyler's cousin, Christopher states that Ramon advised him to get in the back seat while Ramon ride in the front seat. So Tyler transport them to 1108 Brookstone Road. They initially get there to the first cul-de-sac on Brookstone Road. They wasn't quite in front of 1108 just yet. There's a couple of cul-de-sacs in that neighborhood. So once they arrived at the first cul-de-sac, Ramon and the other guys, they got out of the car and they were speaking with Therese, which is CJ. Now, let me help you guys out on something else too. CJ is also known as TJ. And again, his name is Therese Williams. So they at the first cul-de-sac. These guys are outside of the car, they're talking. They said that Ramon wanted them to go down a little bit further because at the second cul-de-sac, that's where the phone transaction was going to occur. They drive down the cul-de-sac, and this is where there was some additional conversation because by this time, the deceased victim, Mr. Okoye, was on scene. This is when the shootout happened. According to Tyler and Christopher, a shootout happened and Ramon was still inside the car. So once the shootout happened, according to Tyler and Christopher, all the guys jumped back inside the Charger. So now you got you got about 6 guys inside of this car, and that's including Ramon and Therese, or CJ or TJ. They drive off. According to Tyler, one of the guys said we didn't get the money. And Tyler says he drove them back to South 784 South Carter Drive. Now, throughout the investigation, I was able to get some video footage, not necessarily of the shooting itself, but I was able to get footage of the white Charger being pulled up in front of the 1108 Brookstone Road. And there was a dark male figure walking up to the car, talking to whomever was inside the car. That footage is actually on the Avail system as well. Now, as the investigation continues, I eventually was able to get in contact with Ramon. Mr. Stovall did come up here and speak with me. When I asked him about the shooting, he initially advised me that he didn't know anything about the shooting. He also stated to me that he didn't know much about CJ/Therese. That's what he initially told me. He stated on the day of the shooting, now he did admit that he did have he contacted Tyler to pick him up for $15. But he said that he never got in the car. And he initially stated that Tyler went to this address on North Main Street. This is where Ramon and some other guys, they have a music studio at this location. He stated that Tyler actually came to that parking lot to pick him up, but he never got inside the car. This was the first meeting I had with Mr. Stovall. Finally, I was able to get Instagram messages of Ramon, and the Instagram messages said a lot more than what he advised me from the initial meeting. If it pleases the court, I would like to read some of those messages if it's okay.
But Detective, let me ask you this, because we don't need you to read all of the messages. What in those messages, well, first let me ask you this. Were these from Mr. Stovall's Instagram account?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And in those messages, did Mr. Stovall, did he provide any details about the shooting that happened on December 26th?
One of the main messages that stuck out to me on the day of the murder, Mr. Stovall asked, "Where's the Africans?" And
I'm sorry, where's the what?
Where's the Africans?
Okay.
And from your read of that, and from your investigation up to that point, who did you interpret Mr. Stovall to be referring to?
I interpreted that to be of the deceased and the victim on scene, because both of them are Nigerian.
Okay. And did Mr. Stovall state anything else regarding what happened on that December 26th?
Not the initial meeting I had with him. He did not.
No, I mean from the Instagram messages.
Oh, yes, ma'am. He spoke of, I have the Instagram messages of him and Tyler speaking about the ride to get over there. And I have the Instagram messages between him and Therese speaking about getting over to Brookstone Road.
Okay. And in those messages, did Mr. Stovall make any reference to shooting either of these individuals?
He did not.
Okay. You eventually took warrants out for murder regarding Mr. Stovall. Please tell us why you decided that based on your investigation that you felt that Mr. Stovall needed to be charged with murder, with malice murder?
Well, number one, we had the two people that was inside the car, Tyler and Christopher, who knows Ramon very well. They've been knowing him for quite some time. Another reason why is because I got video footage of the parking lot where Mr. Stovall stated that Tyler drove into this parking lot to pick them up. Well, when I got video footage of that parking lot, I looked at the video footage from Christmas Day, December 26th, all the way up until the early mornings of 27th. There was no white Charger that pulled up into that parking lot. So I felt as though there was some untruthfulness going on with the initial meeting I had with Ramon.
And from your investigation, were you able to locate any of the weapons that were used?
Not yet, ma'am. No, I was unable to find any weapons.
And Mr. Okoye, was he pronounced deceased on the scene, or was he pronounced dead when he got to the hospital?
I would have to look that up, Attorney Freeman. I don't know the time of death just as of right now.
And just so we're clear, was Mr. Zanu, and I believe I asked this, but just trying to make sure, was he struck at all?
He was not struck.
Okay. Was he able to say who shot at he and Mr. Okoye?
No, ma'am. He was running for his life, so he said it happened so fast, but he was not able to identify which subject that actually shot at him.
Was he able to state anything regarding anybody he saw with a firearm?
He was not.
Was he able to say if it was just one person that had a firearm, or if all of them had firearms?
According to him, he said the passenger that was sitting in the driver's side of the white Charger, they got out of the car, went into the trunk, pulled out a gun, and started shooting.
Detective Walker, now you stated that the car belonged to Tyler Davis. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Was Mr. Davis able to give you, I guess, a description of where the individuals in this car, where they all sat?
From what I remember, initially, like I stated before, when Tyler first picked them up, Ramon sat in the front seat. His cousin Christopher sat in the back seat with two other unknown individuals. He didn't know the other two guys. When they drove to Brookstone, all of the guys, except for his cousin, got out of the car and met with another individual, which is soon to be Therese, CJ rather. When they got back inside the car and went to the second cul-de-sac in front of the scene, Ramon was sitting in the back seat in the middle. That's my understanding.
Okay. Was Mr. Davis, did he provide any information about who may have put in some items in his trunk?
I asked them both about that, and they said there's a possibility that maybe a gun was put in their trunk when they arrived at the first cul-de-sac, but they can't be for sure. He said that's the only way that possibly could have happened, because there was no guns inside his trunk. Now, there's a possibility when the guys first got out the car, they could have slipped a gun into the trunk. Attorney Freeman, I do want to add something else in terms of the Instagram messages.
And these are, wait, listen, let me ask the question. Are these Instagram messages from Mr. Stovall?
This is from Therese talking to Stovall.
Okay, and you were able to confirm that these Instagram accounts did come from these individuals?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and did this, the message, did it have anything to do with the shooting that took place on December 26th?
I believe so.
Okay, what did that message indicate?
It stated that Therese is stating to Mr. Stovall, hurry up because he wants to get to the location before the African do. I'm sorry, before the African does.
So was that message before the shooting?
This is before the shooting. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So based on your review of these Instagram messages and their interviews, is it your understanding that this was planned?
Yes, ma'am. I have an additional Instagram message from a person. This is not Ramon's Instagram. This is a third suspect that I have.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this before we get into that third suspect. Did the third suspect mention Mr. Stovall at all in his messages?
He did not.
And did the third suspect, did he reference this particular, I guess, attempt to sell or buy a phone?
Yes, ma'am, all day long.
Okay. But it did not mention Mr. Stovall at all?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Has this third suspect been located?
Yes, ma'am, but he asked to speak to a lawyer.
Okay. The video surveillance that you indicated that you were able to review, were you able to make out Mr. Stovall in any of that surveillance?
Not in the video.
Were you able to get any statements from CJ?
As of right now, he is still on the run. I have warrants on him, but he has not been located as of yet.
Okay, and so just so we're clear, who all are the people that you got statements from?
Mr. Zano, Christopher, and Tyler, which are the two guys who was inside the car.
Okay, and I know you told us what Tyler stated. Did Christopher give you any statements about what happened as well?
His statement was pretty much the same thing as his cousin Christopher. Christopher is the one who actually recognized CJ. But his statement was pretty much fairly the same thing. When all the guys jumped inside the car, everybody was saying, go, 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 trying to get away from the scene.
Was Christopher able to give you any information about who the actual shooter was?
No, ma'am, he was not.
Okay.
Christopher did state, Attorney Freeman, that one of the guys yelled inside the car.
There's no question for this witness.
Yes,
Yeah.
wait until a question is propounded to you. Nope, no problem.
Detective, did Christopher give you any statements about anything regarding the actual shooter?
Yes, ma'am. His statement was one of the guys got inside the car and stated, why did you shoot him? He didn't have nothing on him. And the guy stated, the shooter responded, his hands was in his pocket. And Christopher also stated that another guy stated, man, I just effing crashed out and we didn't even get nothing from it.
Did Mr. Okoye, the deceased, did he have any weapons on him that were found?
No, ma'am.
Oh. Detective, did this shooting take place in Clayton County?
Yes, it did.
One of the things, Detective, I know you said Mr. Zanu lived at this residence. Did Mr. Okoye also reside there?
He did not.
Did he arrive there in the Charger or some other way?
He arrived there in a silver SUV. If memory serves me correct, I believe it was a Nissan Pathfinder, I believe.
Was this SUV still on the scene?
Yes, it was crashed.
Were you able to determine why it was crashed?
From my understanding, after he was shot, he tried to run back to the car. And I think he tried to get in the car. And when he, I guess, accelerated, the vehicle crashed into the tree. And according to, I believe one of the neighbors, he was screaming out, "Brother, don't let me die. Brother, don't let me die."
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Ms. Pleasant?
Thank you, Judge. Officer Walker, there's no evidence that Stovall agreed to make a purchase of any cell phones, is there?
There's text messages of, no, to answer your question, no.
And there's no evidence that he agreed to participate in a robbery of the two alleged victims in this case?
Evidence? Aside from him being
Yes or
inside
no?
the car?
There's no evidence that he agreed to participate in a robbery?
No.
Thank you. And there's no evidence that he agreed to participate in a murder, is there?
No.
I believe you testified that Tyler Davis is familiar with Mr. Stovall?
Yes.
Okay. At no time did Mr. Davis advise that Stovall was in possession of a firearm, did he?
He didn't say that, no.
And no one that you've spoken to has placed a weapon in the hands of Mr. Stovall.
No.
You testified that you had video footage that you observed, correct?
Yes.
In that video footage, you do not see Mr. Stovall at the trunk of Mr. Davis's vehicle, do you?
No.
How many times did you meet with Mr. Stovall?
Twice.
And was he read his Miranda rights each time?
Yes.
And did he waive his Miranda rights?
No.
So how did he answer questions?
I'm sorry. I apologize. He did agree to speak. I apologize.
Both
He did agree to
times?
speak. Yes. Yes.
And you have a written Miranda waiver for each time?
Right
Yes
here.
or no?
Yes, yes,
Were these meetings recorded?
yes,
Audio,
yes,
video?
yes,
So you testified you have Instagram where Mr. Tyler Davis agreed to give Mr. Stovall a ride, correct?
yes.
Do you have any evidence other than the statements from Tyler and Christopher that Mr. Stovall actually got into that vehicle?
No,
Do you have any evidence as you sit here that Ramon Stovall is familiar in any way whatsoever with the alleged two victims in this case?
no,
And no one that you've spoken to has identified Ramon Stovall as the individual who got out of the car and started shooting, correct?
correct.
And it's your testimony that 6 people got into a Dodge Charger?
That's what was told to me. Yes.
And who told you that 6 people got into the Dodge Charger?
Christopher.
And I just want to be clear, I'm not sure if I asked the question, but you don't have any evidence that Ramon Stovall went into the trunk of this Dodge Charger, correct?
Correct.
One second, Your Honor.
Take your time.
When Mr. Davis initially pulled his vehicle into the first cul-de-sac, what was the time lapse when they got out and then when they got back in the vehicle?
I can't give that to you right now. I'll have to look at it, look it up.
Did you not review that information on the video?
No, that part of the video is not on there. The first time they went on the cul-de-sac, that's not part of the video.
Okay. And neither Tyler Davis or Christopher Davis have provided information about how long it took.
I don't know. I don't remember if I asked them that. I don't have that answer right now.
And you have no IG messages that link Ramon Stovall to knowing the alleged victims in this case.
No, ma'am.
Thank you. That's all I have at this time, Your Honor.
I have a couple questions to clear some things up in my mind. So the first question is about other suspects, and you don't have to tell me the name, but you said one suspect you're still trying to find.
I've located him.
Okay. Are there any additional suspects?
No, I don't have any additional suspects.
Okay. And I thought I heard 2 separate things, and I think I was getting confused with the addresses, so I apologize. But I thought I heard 2 separate positions of Mr. Stovall in the vehicle. One alleged that he was in the front passenger seat, and the other alleged that he was in the back seat middle.
That's correct.
Okay. But at some point, he went from the back seat middle to the front passenger.
Okay, he was picked up from 784 South Carter Drive.
Just because those addresses don't mean nothing to me. So if you
Okay.
could say the incident location and the pickup location.
Okay, the pickup location, he was riding in the front seat.
Okay.
When they got to the incident location, he was riding in the back seat.
Okay. And Mr. Zano said that the person that did the shooting got out of the front passenger seat.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone have any follow-up questions based upon questions that I asked?
None, Your Honor.
Okay.
And yeah,
May Officer Walker be excused?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. Any argument?
yes, Your Honor.
Yep, the state waives opening.
Okay.
Your Honor, these warrants are sworn out that Mr. Stovall knowingly and intentionally conspired to commit the crimes of aggravated assault and murder. The evidence before this court is that there's no evidence that he agreed to purchase cell phones. There's no evidence that he agreed to a robbery. There's no evidence that he agreed to commit a murder. There's no evidence that he was familiar with the alleged victims in this case. Absolutely no evidence that he was the shooter, that he was near the trunk of the vehicle, or that he fired a weapon or that he ever possessed a weapon. There's no evidence that he knowingly and intentionally participated in the crimes that are charged based on the officer's very confusing testimony. But he was clear on cross-examination that there's no evidence linking my client to knowingly and intentionally conspiring to commit these crimes. And I'm asking that the charges be dismissed as a result.
Ms. Freeman?
Thank you, Judge. The testimony that Detective Walker provided, and yes, while some of it may have been a bit confusing, I think he was able to clearly state how, from the beginning, how this started with Mr. Stovall arranging for the transportation through his investigation, when he was able to review messages via Instagram. Those messages seem to be what kind of brought everything together as far as Mr. Stovall's part in planning this. And I think one of the key things that Detective Walker stated was in the messages, the message that, and I can't remember verbatim, but it referred to getting there before the Africans or something of that nature.
Actually, that was not attributed to Mr. Stovall.
I
Okay,
thought that
well-
that was a part of the Instagram conversation between Mr. Stovall and Mr. Davis, Tyler Davis.
Tyler Davis was a driver, Judge.
I thought that was part of it, but that was my recollection, that was part of the message involving Mr. Stovall. But my argument is that with the Instagram messages that Detective Walker referenced regarding all of these individuals, I believe that my argument said that would be sufficient to, at this level for preliminary hearing, to indicate Mr. Stovall's part in the planning of this robbery that seemingly ended up resulting in a murder as well as this aggravated assault. I'm not sure why we don't have, well, I think that the one count of aggravated assault, the victim may be Mr. Zanu.
That was going to be my question.
It is. So looking at, and I'm looking at the warrant now. So the way the warrant is stated, it refers to victim 1 and victim 2. And so looking at the warrant, I can't tell if Mr. Zanu was the alleged victim in the ag assault or if it was Mr. Okoye, but it seems that Mr. Zanu certainly should be a victim. So at this time, Judge, we are asking for both charges to be bound over to Superior Court.
So looking at this, the Instagram records, I think, are enough at this stage for there to be some concern about there was something that was taking place. Ms. Pleasant makes some great points, and based upon how the evidence came out, it would be fair to assume that Christopher Davis is the one that opened his brother's trunk and pulled a gun out. Now, under a party to a crime theory, as it relates to the murder charge, and possibly even the aggravated assault, that of course is a theory the state has to prove. But the Instagram records and allegation of hurrying up and getting there before the two Africans gives me, I believe, enough information for this to go forward. And to be honest with you, I don't know why everybody in that car wasn't charged, because Tyler Davis and Christopher Davis have just as much reason to not be truthful as Mr. Stovall. And so I think that may present a problem if those other individuals are not charged, and the state being able to put a case on at trial. But I know that's not me, but I'm going to bind this over to the Superior Court of Clayton County. And that's my reasoning.
Thank you, Judge. May Detective Walker be excused?
Detective Walker may be excused and Mr. Stovall can be sent back.
Thank you, Judge. And we are getting the officer on Newborn ready.
Okay.
Yes. That's
Okay.
Ms. Pleasant's case. Yes.
Okay.
I think that's Ms. Pleasant's last hearing.
Yes,
Okay.
Lord, yes. Oh, I'm sorry, we're still on YouTube.
Oh, thank you.